Hello everyone, welcome to History and Culture. According to historical records, the Empress, abbreviated as Huanghe, refers to the emperor's principal wife, who is the highest ruler of the empire. According to Xuanzi's view, the Son of Heaven's power is supreme, and his spouse cannot be referred to as wife, hence the term Huanghe. After Qin Shi Huang unified the six kingdoms, he established the institution of the emperor and designated the principal wife as the empress. The empress is ceremonially equal to the emperor, typically traveling in the same carriage and sharing the same seat. On New Year's Day, the emperor's birthday, and her own birthday, the empress receives tributes from the officials. She has her own official positions, such as the three ministers of the empress during the Han dynasty, responsible for managing the inner palace. In theory, the emperor's concubines, palace maids, and female officials are all her subjects. The respectful title for the empress is Your Highness, and upon her death, she is referred to as having passed away or gone to rest. Before the Ming and Qing dynasties, only the empress had a dedicated seal and decree, but after that, senior concubines also received decrees upon their titles. The highest ceremonial dress of the empress is called zhai, and her ceremonial crown is the 12-flower tree crown, which became the phoenix crown after the Song and Ming dynasties, corresponding to the emperor's coronation robe and the 12-feathered crown. The empress's everyday attire is the phoenix robe, corresponding to the emperor's dragon robe. After her death, the empress is usually buried alongside the emperor, a practice known as joint burial. Depending on the burial customs and the principle of the inferior does not disturb the superior, in some dynasties, if the emperor dies first, the empress may be buried near the emperor's tomb, a practice referred to as accompanying burial. The empress must be officially appointed by the emperor. The ceremony of appointing an empress is a significant event that is announced to the world, celebrated by all, and accompanied by a formal and grand ceremony. To become an empress, in addition to family background, character, and appearance, good health is also an important consideration. As feudal dynasties changed, the standards for selecting an empress gradually became stricter. Women had to meet multiple criteria to become the emperor's wife. According to relevant historians, first, the empress's family background cannot be particularly ordinary, otherwise, if a commoner were to become empress, it would be difficult to manage the other consorts from distinguished families. Secondly, in terms of character, she must be virtuous and generous, not competitive or envious. As a reigning emperor, to ensure a continuous line of heirs, he could have countless beautiful women, maintaining 3 palaces and 6 courtyards, with 72 concubines. Additionally, to become an empress, one must possess good looks, after all. If she is too ordinary or even ugly, how could she win the emperor's favor? The final requirement is to successfully pass the premarital examination, and among the various checks, there is one that makes women feel particularly shy. What is this examination? It is the most important one, being intact and a virgin. According to historical records, during the premarital health checks, regardless of whether a woman comes from an ordinary background or a distinguished family, she must honestly undergo examination. In this step of the premarital check, the royal physician first examines the empress-to-be's pulse to see if she is healthy enough to bear healthy heirs for the royal family. Next, the palace matrons will inspect these women physically. In the first step, the women must undress completely to take a bath. In the second step, the matrons check for any scars or hidden skin diseases, the development of the breasts, and even conduct a careful examination of the women's private areas to ensure that the future empress has no concealed ailments. Finally, these women's skin must be smooth and fair. If any unsightly scars are discovered, they will be immediately removed from the selection for empress. After all, an empress must please the emperor. If unsightly marks on her body displease him, the emperor's anger will lead to punishment for the matrons involved in the examination. with severe consequences potentially costing them their lives. Moreover, among the various premarital checks, the most important, and the one that causes the greatest embarrassment for these women, is verifying whether they are still virgins. After all, the royal bloodline must remain untainted. If a woman were to pass through all the rigorous selection only to find that she is already pregnant, it would be unacceptable. Once a child is born, if it's a girl, that's fine. After all, it doesn't concern the continuation of the dynasty. But if it's a boy, and he eventually succeeds in becoming the emperor, it would mean the dynasty is directly overthrown. Therefore, premarital examinations are very important. After all, no ruler of a dynasty wants to raise another man's child, especially when it relates to the lineage of the dynasty. There are some stories in Chinese folklore about Qin Shi Huang, Lu Buwei, Zhao Ji, and Ying Yiren. Although 1,000 years have passed, these tales are still recounted with great interest. While the truth of these stories cannot be proven, they can be seen as a source of amusement for the Qin dynasty from a certain perspective. Checking whether each woman is still a virgin is fundamentally difficult to discern with the naked eye. Hence, these midwives must personally conduct physical examinations. After the midwives have performed their checks, only those confirmed to be suitable will have a mark of vermilion on their arms. However, this method of examination is so private that many women feel immense shame afterward. In this premarital checkup, women are like commodities for sale, displayed bare for inspection. Moreover, this process reflects the extremely low status of women in ancient times. Even becoming a queen means merely moving from one ordinary cage into another, albeit a more splendid one. Overall, in terms of physical examinations, every midwife is very cautious and generally will not accept bribes from these women or their families. According to historical records, women's status during China's feudal period was low and they suffered oppression. However, there were some exceptions. Before the Tang dynasty, women actually held a certain level of status, especially during the reign of Empress Wu Zetian, when women's status saw a significant rise. At that time, women could enter the court to hold official positions. And the marriage customs also differed from those of other periods. For example, when a man and a woman swore an oath of marriage, the man would kneel, while the woman would not. Unfortunately, after Wu Zetian's death, in order to prevent women from holding political power, there was a widespread crackdown on women. After all, the pie of interests was limited. If women took a piece, men would receive less. To prevent women from competing with men for power and resources, men began to oppress women more heavily. Especially during the time of Zhu Xi, women's status significantly declined, and they suffered greatly under male oppression. For example, to maintain the honor of a chaste widow, even if a woman had just married and her husband died, she could not remarry but had to remain loyal to her husband's family. This was almost unimaginable in earlier dynasties, as emperors in the Western Han had married women who had been remarried before. Some historians have commented that in ancient times, women's lives were strictly limited. They were not only expected to possess virtue and talent but also to regard chastity as more important than life itself. If a woman could not bear children after marriage, she could be easily divorced. As if she were merely an object that could be replaced, with no autonomy to choose her own future. In China at that time, especially after the Song dynasty, women's status was generally low. They had to abide by the 3 obediences and 4 virtues, and the 3 principles and 5 constants. Under such strict moral codes, a woman's life often depended on men. They had to obey their fathers at home, their husbands after marriage, and even their sons after their husbands died. In this environment, a woman's happiness often depended on whether her marriage was harmonious. However, in modern society, women enjoy more freedom and choices. They can pursue their dreams and lead autonomous lives. This is the History and Culture channel. Liking and subscribing are the greatest help and support to us. Thank you everyone and see you in the next time.